Hello, my name is Anya Hines and I am the guidance counsellor here in Seaman College. So the aim of this presentation is to give you a brief overview of the supports available for first year students in relation to the transition to post-primary school, to explain my role as guidance counsellor, and lastly to offer some practical advice when helping your son or daughter in deciding which subjects to take up for junior certificate. So, to begin with the supports available, well, we here in Seaman College recognise the very challenging, often daunting time it can be for some students. In the space of 2 short months, students find themselves going from the most senior to the most junior students in the school with new books, new lockers, new routines, negotiating timetables, new subjects, new teachers, more homework, and longer days. It is a big change that needs a little adjusting to, which many may take in their stride, where others may need a little extra time, support, and encouragement. As I mentioned previously, as a school community, we are very aware of the potential difficulties and anxieties surrounding these changes and plan to make the transition to secondary education as smooth and as pleasant as possible. Some of the support networks available for first year students include the following personnel. All classes will have a year head and a class tutor. This is a teacher who undertakes the role of caring for a class group. They ensure that each student's needs are addressed and that each student is achieving the best of his or her ability. They liaise with parents and other supports such as other class teachers, learning support and resource teachers, the deputy principal, and in my own role as guidance counsellor. Class teachers also play a major role in supporting students. Subject teachers work very hard in creating a positive school climate that encourages good relationships amongst students and teachers. Class teachers are constantly on the lookout for students who may not be coping particularly well in the first term of school when students may be most anxious. In the social, personal, health education classes and wellbeing modules, students are also exposed to areas such as self-management, study skills, communication skills, and other coping strategies to help them adapt and to integrate quickly into their new learning environment. Lastly, you as parents and guardians will provide the biggest source of support and encouragement for your son and daughter. We here in Seamount operate very much an open door policy and welcome any concerns you may have about your son or daughter. Therefore, the advice is to make contact with the school if you've any worries or any other information on how we can best support your son and daughter in their education. You should also encourage your son and daughter to talk about secondary school and what the expected changes mean to them, as you may be able to reduce some of their worries and concerns. So, moving on to my role within the school. Firstly, guidance incorporates the following three interlinked areas: person and social education, educational and vocational guidance. In first year, I meet with classes in their first week of school to introduce them to the guidance and pastoral care service and to encourage them to seek help if necessary and to alleviate some of their anxieties. I also arrange small group meetings with all first year students in the first term to allow time to reflect on the transition process. This aids in highlighting any concerns for the student. And lastly, individual counselling is offered to all students when required, which provides a supportive space and presence, particularly in the times of personal difficulty. Counselling may include personal, educational, and career counselling. So, moving on to the choice of subjects. In addition to PEs, SPHE, CSPE, and RE, students study the core subjects of English, Irish, Maths, French, Science, History, and Geography. Students must then pick two additional subjects from business, music, home economics, visual art, graphics, and design technology. So, how do students know which subjects to pick, especially those which they may not have any experience or exposure to? Some of the factors that students should consider include their interest in the subject. Do they have a particular or an obvious passion for the subject? For example, are they particularly musical or artistic? I think it is very true when they say interest is often the best teacher. Students also need to be aware of the workload and consider taking a balance between a practical based subject like art or a more theoretical subject like business. Some students are very aware of their own learning style. For example, students will be better at doing rather than learning factual information. Students may also be thinking already about their future career aspirations. For example, a fashion designer, an architect, photographer, accountant, or a chef, and should pick subjects that lend themselves to that career. However, you as parents are very aware how quickly these dreams can change, so the advice in keeping as many options open as possible seems more valid and appropriate at this stage of growth. Students should also think about and consider the resources and supports available at home to them. For example, if a sibling or parent has expertise in a particular subject, they may be able to offer extra support and guidance. Students may also like the practicality of some subjects and its relevance to their lives, for example, home economics and business studies. And finally, it would be important that students would not choose subjects on the basis of what their friends are choosing and because they think the subject will be easy. Therefore, it would be particularly important as parents to question your son or daughter's motives in picking their subjects to ensure that their decisions are informed and thought out, or as they possibly can at such a young age. For this to happen, students should do the research, such as talking to older siblings, family members, and friends, and if possible, to look at the textbooks if they're available to them. Also have a look at some of the online resources available to them, such as juniorcycle.ie, examinations.ie, curriculumonline.ie, and careersportal.ie for details on some of the Junior Cert Cycle subjects. Business studies is a very practical subject and one that is very relevant to students' lives. For example, in the areas of budgeting and saving, where students learn to make responsible and informed decisions about managing financial resources. Significantly, too, there is a strong development of the understanding and skills required for business-related subjects in senior cycle, with obvious links to the two Leaving Cert subjects of business and accounting. Yet it is also linked to mini company formation, work experience and workplace investigation in transition year and to the Leaving Certificate vocational programme, where there's a focus on enterprise and preparation for working life. The three areas of business include the understanding of the business environment and our economy, personal finance, and the development of entrepreneurial skills. Students will learn about entrepreneurship, employment and marketing, and finance for a business. Income and expenditure for an individual and household and consumer issues and behaviours. And in the last strand, students learn about the demand and supply of goods and services. Business studies will have two assessment components, a classroom-based work component worth 40% of their overall grade. This comprises of a research project, presentation and a reflection assignment developed over second and third year. Students will also have a final written exam worth 60%, which will be assessed by the State Examination Commission. Moving on to home economics, another very practical subject where students learn how to take care of themselves and others, particularly in the area of practical food and health literacy skills, including menu planning, shopping, cooking, health and food and safety food skills, portion control, reading food labels, dietary analysis and food waste. As part of their food, health and culinary skills, students take part in cooking practicals throughout the year. Students are assessed in a final practical exam in third year worth 50% of their overall mark. This is marked by the State Examinations Commission. This type of assessment and way of learning would suit those students who learn best by doing. Students also write a food literacy skills brief in preparation for their graded food practical. In the second strand of responsible family living, students will learn essential life skills that will enable them to responsibly and sustainably manage resources for independent living. And finally, the last strand focuses on developing students' creativity and textile skills, and knowledge including hand and machine sewing skills and embellishment. The second class-based assessment will be a piece of work in this area. Students will also have a written exam worth 50% marked by the State Examinations Commission, covering topics from all three strands. Moving on to music, where students develop their music literacy, critical and performance skills. Music takes into account the three core areas of music: performing, composing and listening. Music would be particularly suited to students who already invest a lot of time in either playing or singing music outside of school, as students are assessed on their performance skills, worth 30% of their overall grade. For students who may be shy about performing, solo students can also be assessed as part of a group. During the course, students are exposed to many different genres of music, from popular, folk, classical, and traditional Irish music, where students get the opportunity to broaden their musical knowledge. The assessment will comprise of 2 classroom-based assessments, a composition portfolio and a programme note, a practical exam, as I mentioned previously, and a written exam. In their composition portfolio, students will compile their musical ideas in a variety of genres and styles over their 3 years. 2 pieces from the portfolio will be selected by the student for assessment. For the second classroom-based assessment, the students will prepare a programme note to inform an audience on the context of their performance for their practical exam. For the practical exam, students will perform 3 musical pieces. The practical exam will be allocated 30% and the written exam worth 70%, both marked by the State Examinations Commission. Moving on to visual art, where students learn new skills through making work across the 3 main strands of art, craft and design. Visual art is a practical subject. There is no final examination, so again would suit students who learn better by doing rather than learning more theoretical information. The assessment of visual art will comprise of 2 classroom-based assessments. Much of the work that the student creates will be recorded on a visual art pad used to capture their ideas, for example sketches and photographs. April and second year students will be assessed on this visual art pad and 1 finished piece of work. For their second classroom-based assessment in third year, students will make a formal presentation on their ideas. Students will continue to develop their ideas and will submit 2 pieces of work in early May, which will be assessed by the State Examinations Commission. Students who are creative may also enjoy graphics, where students learn how to present 3D objects on paper and computer. Students will develop problem-solving and creative thinking skills. Students will learn how to produce drawings using freehand sketches and computers. Students will also learn how graphics relate to the design and manufacturing of products. It is particularly useful for any students interested in architecture, engineering, product design, and other technical-based careers. There are 2 classroom-based assessments, communicating through sketching and graphical presentation skills, a project worth 70% and a final examination assessed by the State Examinations Commission worth 30% of their overall mark. And finally, the last of our subjects is design technology, another practical subject where you will use the design process to work through a task or problem in order to arrive at a solution, which is usually in the form of an artifact or finished product. You will learn how to safely use the tools, materials, and equipment necessary to make this product. The assessment of applied technology for the purposes of the junior cycle profile of achievement will comprise of 2 classroom-based assessments, exploring the application of controlled systems in a local context and student self-analysis and evaluation, a project worth 70% of your overall mark, and a final written examination assessed by the State Examination Commission worth 30%. This subject builds skills and knowledge that are particularly useful for careers in the following career sectors: technology, construction, architecture, manufacturing, energy, and engineering, to name but a few. This brings me to the end of my presentation. Please don't hesitate in getting in touch if you have any queries on any of the subjects or supports available here in Seaman College.